3 sinister true tales of end-of-summer horror revealed. Haunted secrets and cursed encounters. Emily felt the chill of September sneaking in around the edges of summer, and it made her skin crawl. The bright golden days grew shorter, replaced by a growing darkness that seemed to stretch its fingers across the neighborhood. She watched with concern as Jake ran through their tree-lined street, his laughter a sweet yet haunting echo, reminding her of what lay ahead. As she prepared him for school, there would be more time for shadows to creep into their lives. Something was wrong. The streetlights seemed to flicker more than usual, casting jagged shadows on their modest home. Last evening, the wind whispered through the old oaks as if sharing secrets. She shook her head, brushing aside eerie night tales as mere products of her overwhelming anxiety. But in the pits of her stomach, a sense of dread began growing, festering like a wound. Their daily routine became her fortress, taking long walks after dinner, hands tightly clasped, sharing tacky dinners filled with laughter, gingerly slipping away from encroaching fears. But one fateful evening, as they wandered past the community park, Jake spotted something odd in the distance, a decaying playground overtaken by rust and weeds. "Can we check it out, Mom?" His wide eyes sparkled with mischief, but the memory of a lost child haunted Emily's mind, a fading poster that once meant something. Hadn't a neighbor told tales of them? She hesitated, battling an icy nerve that coiled in her belly. The whispers in the trees seemed louder, beckoning them toward the ominous slide. Jake pulled her toward the playground, built long before they arrived here, now a relic. As they stepped through the entrance, Emily felt the air grow stale. What once was a joyous soundscape now lay silenced under the velvet darkness. Among the discarded toys, Emily's heart raced. A rusted spaceship toy caught her eye, unsettling words scrawled in paint. "Don't bring it home!" "Look, Mom!" Jake shouted, his tiny hands trembling with excitement as he held up old photographs, faces smiling back. But as she inspected the glossy prints, her blood ran cold. The laughter twisted into horror, their eyes wide with fear. She dropped the images like they'd burned her hands. A ghost of familiarity lingered among the smiling faces. They'd shared barbecues and friendly waves with these neighbors. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The feeling of safety, once wrapped around her like a blanket, was stripping away thread by thread. Doubts piled high in her mind, churning with images of the charming municipal codes officer who'd been watching them, his smile now feeling predatory. Each handshake, friendly nod, felt like a noose tightening around her neck. Why did he show up whenever she took Jake to the park? Anxiety crackled and sparked through the trees, cloaking her in oppressive loneliness. Each night as darkness descended faster with the waning season, Emily stumbled onto her grandmother's old folktales, page yellowing from age, whispering things she'd long chosen to forget. Curses. Disappearances on autumn nights. But she couldn't fully grasp it until her heartbeat thrummed painfully loud, echoing in her ears, punctuated by whispers that clawed at her sanity. Something deep within the roots of their home felt rotten. As she looked toward Jake, the chills racing down her spine warned her the curse was close, waiting to awaken as the summer surrendered to fall. With every breath, each tick of the clock, fear morphed into wild desperation. Was she truly battling for Jake's safety? Or was the curse tightening its grip around the smiles that hid betrayal? She felt a darkness creeping in, ready to shatter the remnants of their simple life. Just as she prepared for confrontation, she caught sight of a small toy nestled in Jake's backpack, a toy that should never have found its way home. penning the final chapters of a horrific truth. What awaited them now? Emily's heart raced as she snatched the toy from Jake's backpack, its sinister presence overwhelming. A small figure, battered and stained, resembling something grotesque from the playground. She felt dizzy, the blood draining from her face, each beat of her heart echoing the weight of dread pressing against her chest. "What is it, Mom?" Jake asked, eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and concern. She wanted to shove it back, to force it away from their lives, but instead, she dropped it on the floor as if it burned her fingers. "It's nothing, honey." But her voice trembled despite her efforts to maintain calm. That night, while Jake slept, Emily found herself glued to her phone, frantically researching the playground and its chilling history. The deeper she dug, the more her stomach twisted. Everything she uncovered felt like needles pricking at her resolve, hollowing out her confidence. The past year had seen strange disappearances, children who left their homes only to vanish into whispers of the night. Rumors wove a fabric of fear, suggesting a curse that wrapped tighter with every season change. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The tension in the air grew thicker as she peered out the living room window, expecting to see their neighbor Gary, the codes officer, lingering outside. But all she found was the stark darkness of night, swallowing the silhouettes of trees beyond the glass. Sleep eluded her, but with dawn's break, so came a moment of false relief. She took it, hoping for a clearer day. Breakfast was a routine affair, Jake humming a tune to himself while she sipped her coffee like it was holy water. Yet, the nagging sensation that something lingered was more pronounced, fluttering just out of view, hiding in the corners of her mind. When she glanced at Jake, he was staring intently at the doorway, as if someone had called to him. "Mom, did you hear that?" His voice startled her. "Hear what, sweetheart?" She instinctively followed his gaze, but the hallway remained empty. "It's just the wind." "No." It was a whisper. "I'm sure of it." A chill slithered down Emily's spine. She pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him protectively. "It's nothing, love. Just let us focus on getting ready for school, okay?" As they walked to the bus stop, each step felt like a dart shot down a dark alley. Susan, their neighbor, waved with a smile that seemed too wide, too forced. Emily's stomach churned. She nodded back, but it felt like a trap, as if Susan enjoyed knowing something Emily did not. Back at home, the toy-esque shadow taunted her from its resting place. She approached it slowly, each footstep heavy with trepidation. As her fingers brushed the cold, plastic surface, a sharp pain shot through her palm. A cut. Tiny and red, droplet-sized beads of blood welled up. Moments later, her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. An alert flashed across the screen. Local child missing. Her heart dropped. The name was one she recognized. As if the ground shifted beneath her feet, understanding dawned. This wasn't just a message, it was a warning. Jake's laughter filled the empty echo of her thoughts, innocence colliding with the darkness closing in. Panicking, she rushed toward the hallway, glancing back at that cursed toy. Her pulse quickened as she imagined the worst. Was he next? "Jake!" she shouted, her voice blending with the pulse of fear ringing in her ears. Just then, she heard whispers swirl around her, echoing as if the house came alive with a sinister life of its own. Was it too late? But from his bedroom, Jake appeared, clutching a photograph that wasn't there before, a picture of the old playground, the faces uncomfortably familiar and eerily aging. "Mom, look what I found." He held it up, and Emily's heart raced not from excitement but from horror. This current chapter of terror wasn't over, it had just begun, unraveling before her eyes, questioning everything she knew. What were these whispers urging? What awaited them beyond the threshold of understanding? The photograph felt heavier in Emily's hands than it should. Jake's innocence shone through his excited eyes, yet her own racing heart drowned out any semblance of joy. The faces in the picture were all too familiar. Kids she'd seen at the playground, their joyous laughter now twisted into something sinister. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I found it under my bed," Jake replied, an unsettling smile creeping across his face. "It was in a box with some other stuff." Emily's stomach churned. The box of old toys. It had been there when they moved in, hidden beneath the floorboards, locked away, untouched. Jake should never have had access to it. Seizing the photograph, she inspected it closely. The faces faded into the background, almost as if they belonged to another time, another place, and that place felt like a dark memory she couldn't quite grasp. Again, whispers drifted through the air, tugging at her ears like a phantom breeze. Jake turned his head, listening intently, eyes wide. "Do you hear it, Mom? They're talking to us." She shook her head, clenching the photograph as panic spread throughout her limbs. "It's the wind, sweetie," she said, her voice trembling. As the day wore on, anxiety wrinkled her heart. The past couldn't stay buried. She needed answers, but the more she searched online, the blacker the hole seemed to grow. Was it the curse everyone spoke of? Or were there hidden secrets buried deep within the playground's welcoming facade? After dinner, she tried to put things back together. She engaged Jake with puzzles, a distraction to shield him from the encroaching darkness, but the shadows kept creeping in beside them. Whenever she glanced at him, his smile felt stretched too thin, almost mocking her. "Let us go outside," she suggested, desperate for some fresh air. They stepped into the dim evening, the air heavy with summer's end. The playground loomed in the distance, an enticing facade, yet the darkness around it pulsed with an unsettling rhythm. "Can we go play?" Jake asked, his excitement still flickering with innocent enthusiasm. Emily hesitated. "Not now, maybe tomorrow," she replied, heart racing, as if it could outrun the encroaching night. But he was already skipping away, pulling her toward the playground against her will. "See, Mom. Just a little bit." The moment they crossed the threshold, something shifted. The air grew denser, swirling with memories of laughter and screams, thick like smoke. Whispers danced through the trees, converging upon her psyche, dredging up the refuse of fear. As Jake ran toward the swings, she felt the ground tighten beneath her. The photo in her pocket burned against her thigh, urging her to stop him. But he was too far. She couldn't lose him, not like them, not like the children whispered about in hushed tones at night. "Jake!" she screamed, her voice cracking, but it was swallowed by the creeping darkness that wrapped around her like chains. His laughter rang back, sweet and innocent. She turned her body toward the sound, but the darkness seemed to block out all hope. Something was waiting just beyond the trees, and that's when the laughter changed. It shifted, became warped, echoing the laughter of those faded faces in the photograph. It wasn't Jake's anymore. "Mom, are you coming?" He stood beneath the swing, looking back with an unnaturally sweet smile. Chilled to her bones, Emily's gut twisted, and she saw the truth unraveling before her. "Please, Jake, come back." The ground trembled slightly, as shadows began to take shape in the corner of her vision. They pulsed and shifted, and in that moment, she knew they were not alone. The whispers grew louder, clearer, spiraling into a cacophony of voices beckoning her child closer, into the clutches of the damned. "Mom!" he called again, but the tone was different now, enticing, sinister. Heart pounding, she stepped toward him, toward the darkness, desperate to save her son from a fate she now feared was inescapable. What choice did she have? She was running out of time, but as she reached for him, the air crackled, and the shadows surged around her. "Emily," they whispered, pulling her spirit like a marionette into their tangled web. What were they? What would they do next? The final thought spun wildly as the darkness swallowed her whole, leaving behind only a whisper rasping through the night. You must choose. The cost will be dire. Emily's heart raced as the whispers closed in, transforming the nighttime air into a chilling symphony of sorrow and foreboding. She felt like a marionette caught in unseen strings, jerking helplessly toward Jake's fading form. Panic clawed at her chest. "Jake!" Her voice was nothing more than a faint echo, lost in the darkening shadows. The playground, once a haven for laughter, now stood twisted and grotesque, the colors leaching into a dull, lifeless gray. The swings creaked as if already occupied by unholy forces. She could hear the rustling leaves forming words, taunting her, "Come join us." "Mom." Jake's sweet voice dripped with an eerie cadence, the way a parent might coax a child into a game. He was still framed beneath the swing, his childlike enthusiasm morphing into something unsettling. She was losing him. No, she couldn't do that. The shadows swirled with a life of their own, creeping toward her, wrapping tightly around her ankles, cold and clammy. She fought against the pull, forcing one foot forward, then the other. "Stay back! Jake, stay right there!" Jake took a step closer, his eyes wide, reflecting the dimming light. "They know what we need, Mom," he called, his smile too wide, too strained. "They want to play." No, no, no! She could not let him fall into their trap. A dark shroud settled over him like a fog, thickening the distance between them. She had to act fast. Gathering all the strength she could muster, Emily lunged forward, gripping the chains of the swing and squeezing tightly, grounding herself. "Jake! It's a trick! Please come back!" The shadows leaned in closer, their whispers colliding and swirling violently. Together, they spoke with a chorus that drowned out her very thoughts. She felt their bitter chill caressing her like a lover, beckoning her into their fold. "You can't keep him," they hissed, voices raspy and filled with malice. "He belongs here now. Release him, and you'll be free." She shook her head violently. Memories of happier times flooded her mind: birthday parties, trips to the ice cream store, bedtime stories. "No! I want to let you take my son." In the blink of an eye, the world around her darkened, constricting like a vice. The playground warped, transforming into a sinister landscape. The very trees twisted like gnarled fingers, reaching for her. "Mom!" Jake shrieked again, but the familiarity of his voice faded, replaced by the sinister echoes of other children, distant yet haunting. The laughter turned into a shriek, then silence, interrupted only by the creaking swings. "Your choice, Emily." The shadows now surrounded her completely, pressing against her like a frigid wave. "Sacrifice yourself, or take his hand. One must pay the price." She looked at Jake, the boy who had once filled her heart with joy. His innocent eyes now brimmed with something else, something that stirred fear deep within her. "I'd give anything to save you." "Mom," he whispered, stretching out his little hand. Time stood still. She felt the weight of every decision pressing on her chest. The air felt thick, suffocating. Shadows licked at her heels, and a pit grew in her stomach, knowing that those shadows could take both their lives. And just as her hand reached out, a blinding flash of light erupted from the playground entrance, slicing through the darkness like a blade. Emerging from its brilliance was a figure, cloaked and menacing, seemingly untouched by the encroaching night. "What are you doing here?" it growled, voice echoing with raw power. Emily's breath hitched in her throat. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The figure stepped closer, and in that moment, she realized the malevolent whispers hesitated, almost recoiling as if this stranger held dominion over the darkness. "Run!" it commanded, and Emily didn't need telling twice. With renewed urgency, she surged toward Jake, driving against the shadows that clung desperately to her. But as she reached for him, he faltered. "Mom!" he cried, but a shadow snaked its way around his waist, pulling him away. Jake! This was her chance. Tear him from their grasp. With a jolt of adrenaline, she lunged toward her son, determination blazing in her eyes. The figure roared from behind, "The choice is yours. Will you welcome the darkness, or stride into the light?" The answer hung in the air, palpable and urgent. "Mom, please!" That was all it took. She charged for the swing, desperation fueling her movement. Just as the shadows tightened their grip on Jake, she was almost there. But what would she have to pay for this chance? Emily grasped Jake's hand, feeling the cold touch of the shadows on her back. As the ground beneath them rumbled, a puzzling truth began to unveil itself behind her. The cloaked figure began to fade, and with it, her last hope of escape. Would she face the darkness alone? Would it take her just as it had taken so many before? The darkness pulsed around them as her heartbeat raced. The choice hung in the balance, like a pendulum ticking down. Would they be lost or saved? The anxiety pressed heavily, and it dawned on her that whatever happened next, the playground would never be the same. And neither would they. The ground shook beneath Emily as the shadows writhed around her, an unending tide of voices pressing in. She clutched Jake tighter, the fragile warmth of his small hand contrasting sharply with the cold grasp of the creeping darkness. Every tug from the abyss was a reminder of what she could lose. "Mom!" he cried, his voice frantic, but distant, dissonant. He was still right in front of her, yet the shadows seemed to stretch him like elastic, pulling him further into the malevolence that surrounded them. Emily felt the bond between them crack like glass. Without thinking, Emily focused on the figure that had appeared, feeling its presence loom behind her. "What do I do?" she screamed, her voice taut with desperation, but the figure was already retreating into the darkness, its silhouette fading like fog in the morning sun. "Choose!" It growled one last time, loud and unyielding. The tendrils of shadow wrapped around her legs, constricting tighter. "Jake!" she shouted again, feeling her heart race. "We have to go. Now!" In the flickering light, she could see Jake's eyes, fearful, pleading. The shadows whispered sweet promises into his ear. Was he really hearing them? Did he really want to stay? "Mom, I don't want to leave," he murmured, a hint of that twisted innocence still clinging to him. The playground morphed, the swings creaking ominously as if alive, watching, waiting. What had once been a refuge now loomed as a cell of horrors, each flicking shadow a reminder of what he could join. "Jake, please!" Her voice was cracking under the weight of panic. "We have to get out of here." The darkness roared back, hungry for her heartbreak, tightening its grip. Amidst her fear, a flicker of clarity ignited. If the shadows were offering him something he wanted, what could she offer instead? "Jake, remember the games we played?" she implored, clutching his arm. "Remember everything we laughed about? The picnics, the stars? Your birthday cake with all the candles? If you come with me, we'll make more, so many more." But the shadows sneered. "Join us, Jake. All your wishes can come true. Why would you want to leave?" Emily thrust herself into the conversation, desperation fueling her every word. "Because none of it is real." Her voice broke, but she pushed onward. "That's a lie. Those shadows just want to take you away. I promise you, my love, the world out there is so much brighter." Jake's eyes flickered, uncertainty etched across his features as he hesitated. The shadows twitched angrily around him, their whispers rising to a shriek. "Come home, Jake." With each heartbeat, Emily pulled with every ounce of strength, feeling the shadows gnaw at her edges, fraying her resolve. But what if Jake's wish was stronger than her love? She felt the panic rising like bile in her throat. "Mom, what do I do?" The terror in Jake's voice shattered her defenses. "Trust me," she shouted. "Reach for me, Jake." Tension surged in the air, a crackling energy that sent shivers down her spine. The shadows snarled, lunging closer as they felt his wavering commitment. Time hung suspended, everything hinged on this moment. Suddenly, the shadow around Jake jerked violently, trying to wrench him back, but Emily held firm. "I love you, Jake. You're not alone." In that instant, something changed in the air. A dawning realization struck Emily like lightning. She wasn't alone either. She summoned every ounce of that love, every joy they'd ever shared, pouring it into a resonance that fought the dark's grip. With one last desperate surge, her arm extended, trembling as she screamed, "Take my hand, Jake. Now!" The shadow howled, furious and wild, but as Jake's small fingers met hers, a blinding light flared around them, illuminating the playground in a brilliant blaze that pushed back the shadow. But was it a true escape, or just temporary relief? The darkness snarled, retreating but not surrendering, whispering promises of what could be lost. Emily's heart raced as the shadows curled in the corners of her vision, creeping ever closer in spite of the light. The playground trembled, and she knew this was only the beginning. What just happened? Jake's voice shook. The air crackled with electricity, and a chilling realization settled over Emily. The figure wasn't gone. It was watching, lurking on the edge of their reality, waiting for its chance. "Jake, we need to find a way out of here, but it won't be easy. This fight has only just begun." In the distance, the playground leaned into the darkness, becoming a hollow reminder of what lurked after them. And then, a new voice joined the chorus, the laughter of children that chilled Emily to the bone. Was it too late? Emily's heart thumped in her chest, adrenaline spiking as she spun around, searching for the source of that haunting laughter. It echoed from the shadows, strange and inviting, weaving through the twisted metal slides and rotting wood of the playground. "Jake, stay close," she urged, not daring to look away from the darkness. The feeling of unseen eyes prickled at her skin, and the laughter grew louder, mingling with the whispers that crawled through the air. Each wave of sound sent a chill rippling down her spine. "Why are they laughing?" Jake asked, his small voice tremulous. "Children, they're just playing, right?" Emily replied with forced steadiness. But her stomach twisted. This was the innocent laughter she remembered from sunny days at the park. No, this was something else, something malevolent. The shadows danced at the edges of the light, and the air felt thick, as if the darkness was alive, pressing in. The playground had morphed into a twisted reflection of itself, each feature grotesquely exaggerated. The swings swung on their own, creaking out a warning. The merry-go-round spun, faster and faster, a frenzy beckoning her toward the abyss. "Look!" Jake yelled, pointing to the sandpit. Emerging from the ground were ghostly figures of children, their features blurred, indistinct. Emily felt nausea claw at her throat. They were not just shadows. They were trapped souls, their faces warped with despair. "What do you want?" she shouted, battling the tightening coil of fear in her chest. "Leave us alone." The figures paused, the air shifting around them. Their laughter faded into a sinister silence. Then, one figure stepped forward, a girl with hollow eyes and a wicked smile. "We want to play. Forever." "No! I want tea." Emily gasped, clutching Jake's hand tighter, the warmth nearly searing through her mounting dread. "Mom," Jake whimpered. "I don't want to play anymore. With them, no, never." Every inch of her screamed to run, but the girl's smile only widened, eyes gleaming with malice. "Join us," the girl hissed, her voice echoing with cruelty. "It's so much fun. You can be just like us." Emily could feel the shadows closing in, tendrils creeping up her legs, threatening to drag her into the murky depths of their world. "They're lying. We're leaving," she shouted, starting to back away, trying to pull Jake with her. But Jake stayed rooted, confusion etched on his face. "But what if they have candy? And games?" "Jake, please." Panic clawed at her throat. They're lying. They take everything. We have to trust each other and escape. The laughter erupted again, sharp and cruel, echoing off the rusting metal. The shadows began to surge forward as if her fear was a beacon, fueling their hunger. Emily felt the ground tremble beneath her, a subtle warning. Her heart raced, breath quickening as she strained to keep Jake's focus. "I'm here," she whispered fiercely, desperation lacing her tone. "I'll fight for you, for us. Just trust me." Jake's eyes flickered, uncertainty flooding back. The shadows lunged again, hungry for Jake's innocence. "Mom, what if I want to stay? What if it's fun? Jake!" She screamed, her voice breaking, the reality of her child's words falling like bricks. With a snap, the girl lunged, reaching for Jake, her hand outstretched. But Emily was faster. In a surge of protective instinct, she yanked Jake to her, wrapping her arms around him like a shield. The ground roared and the sky blackened as a storm of shadows raged around them. "Hold on!" she shouted, sprinting toward the only hope, the path that led away from the playground, away from the cursed laughter. But as they began to run, another voice called, low and mocking. "You think you can escape? You can't run from what is inside you." Emily's breath caught, fury and fear intertwining as she pushed forward, dragging Jake behind her through the maelstrom of terror. The figures shrieked, their voices growing loud like an unwelcome choir, confusion blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. Then, just as she thought they might reach the edge of the shadows, the ground beneath them surged and bucked, swallowing the path whole. "Mom!" Jake cried, his grip slipping. And in that moment, Emily found herself spiraling into the darkness once more, shadows reaching for her like claws. Could they truly escape, or was this just another trick of the foul playground? "Hold tight!" she shrieked as they fell, the laughter of the children echoing behind them. What awaited them at the bottom? Could they survive the next test that lay ahead? The moment they landed, it felt like they were dropped into ice water. Cold. Dark. It grasped at their bodies, pulling them down, wrapping around them in heavy tendrils. Emily's chest tightened as she gasped, struggling to breathe. The shadows swirled violently, their whispers now a cacophony, drowning every rational thought. "Mom!" Jake's terrified voice cut through the chaos, yanking her back. She reached for him, their fingers barely brushing before he was dragged away, the shadows seizing him like a predator eager for its prey. "No!" Emily screamed, adrenaline surging through her. She lunged toward him, but the darkness pushed her back, a relentless wave that would not yield. The laughter returned, mocking and sharp, bouncing off invisible walls. "Forever!" One of the ghostly children shrieked, their distorted faces flashing in and out of the dark, twisted with glee. "Join us!" "No! Not my son!" The primal instinct to protect surged within her. Fueled by fear, she forced herself forward, driving through the oppressive darkness, fighting against the tendrils that sought to grasp her legs like chains. "Jake, where are you?" she shouted, her voice breaking. Panic clawed at her throat. The cold was everywhere, filling her lungs with a suffocating dread. The further she pressed into the murk, the harder it became to breathe. The echoes of the children's laughter twisted into manic screams, filling her with despair. Ahead, a flicker of light appeared. Emily didn't think. She dashed toward it, heart pounding against her ribs. With every step, the shadows thrashed at her, whispering her fears. "You can't win, Emily. You're one of us now." She veered toward the light, finally bursting through a barrier of darkness. The world transformed instantly. The playground emerged before her eyes, twisted but bright, the moon casting an unsettling glow on each warped structure. Shadows loomed but no longer engulfed her. "Jake!" she cried, frantically scanning the area. There, At the base of the rusting slide, Jake's small figure stood, rooted in place, staring into the abyss of the playground. The girl with the hollow eyes loomed beside him, her smile wicked and toothy. "He can have so much fun here," she teased, the wind carrying her voice like ice. "Forever playing games, Jake. Don't listen to them." Emily's heart raced as she rushed forward, desperation pumping through her veins. But Jake turned, eyes glazed with an unnatural sheen. "Mom, she says I can fly and have all the toys I want." "No!" Emily yelled, panic rising again. "You don't want to fly, you want to come home." "They're lying." She grabbed for him, the air thickening with terror and whispers. The shadows began to pulse, and the girl laughed, a sound that pierced through Emily like an arrow. "You'll never take him. He likes it here. He likes us." "Jake." Emily's voice trembled with rage and grief. She felt a tugging, a desperate pull from the darkness, as if it was trying to snatch Jake away. "Please trust me." But in that moment, the ground beneath her shook violently. A crack split through the soft earth, growing wider, threatening to consume them all. Emily could feel the shadowy figures coiling around her, hungry for her despair. The laughter turned sinister, echoing like a drawn-out funeral dirge. "Let him go!" she screamed. "Jake, fight it!" He blinked, confusion flashing across his features. "Mom, I want to." Before he could finish, the shadows lunged, claws of darkness reaching for him, ensnaring his tiny frame. She felt tears burning her eyes, fear consuming her. "Jake!" With a primal roar, Emily dove forward, her instincts guiding her. She lunged toward her son, her arms ready to break through the darkness, ready to fight the shadows. As the tendrils wrapped around both of them, a blinding light erupted from her core, illuminating the darkness. But just as hope flickered, the girl let out a shrill scream. "You can't escape. Your fear feeds us. You'll never leave." Hesitation gripped Emily's heart, but she had to believe in a way out. The shadows howled, crashing against the light with a force so intense, Emily felt it vibrate through her bones. What was stronger, love or fear? What would it take to save Jake from this hell? And then again, a fresh voice, deeper and older, erupted from the darkness. "Home depends on what you're willing to do." Emily's heart stuttered. What did that mean? With renewed determination, she gripped Jake tightly, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But would she sacrifice everything, even her own essence, to save him? As Emily prepared to confront the depths of that nightmare, the blackness loomed. Would their bond be enough to shatter the curse waiting to swallow them whole? Emily's heart raced in a frantic rhythm as the shadows closed in, wrapping around her and Jake with an icy grip. The light burst from her core, illuminating their immediate surroundings. But even that radiant glow seemed fragile in the face of the darkness encroaching upon them. The whispered threats swirled around, pressing at her ears. She could feel the weight of fear tugging at her resolve. "Hold on to me, Jake," she shouted, desperation spilling from her voice. She could see his small figure, a fleeting glimmer of innocence, caught in the clutches of that sinister girl and the torturous darkness. "Mom!" Jake's plea cracked like glass, echoing the pain that pierced through Emily. She refused to relent. She could not lose him to this nightmare. She charged forward, her own fear morphing into a blazing force, propelling her through the tightening shadows. But as she reached for Jake, the darkness twisted and contorted, wrapping tighter around him, pulling him further away. "You can't protect him, Emily," the girl sneered, her grotesque smile twisting like a knife. "He belongs with us now. He has already chosen." "No!" Emily screamed, summoning every ounce of hope within her. The light from her core pulsed desperately, quivering against the encroaching darkness. "You're lying. Fight it, Jake." "Please!" The shadows shrieked back, a cacophony of rage that vibrated through her bones. Emily's vision blurred, tears cascaded down her cheeks. She felt disoriented, not knowing how much longer she could maintain the glow. Each heartbeat echoed louder in the abyss. She forced herself to breathe, to think. The shadows seemed to pulsate with a life of their own, craving despair. In that moment of chaos, something within her awakened a primal instinct of protection, of love. It surged through her chest, igniting an ember that threatened to consume all fear. "You want to play?" she cried, her voice steadying with each word. "Then let us play. You want my fear? I refuse to give it to you." With every ounce of strength, she launched herself deeper into the darkness, the light growing brighter. The scream of the children wailed in protest, the shadows recoiling as if burned. "Jake, jump to me!" she cried, extending her arms wide. Time hung in the thick air, suspended between hope and despair. Jake blinked, the glazed look in his eyes flickering for just a moment. He hesitated, torn between the allure of the shadowy figures and the warmth of his mother's love. Suddenly, the ground split wider, a vortex of darkness threatening to swallow them whole. With a shudder, Emily pulled forth her determination. "You have to believe in us." "I want to." Jake's voice cracked, and he took a step toward her. The darkness wrapped tighter around him, but he took another step. The girl's laughter turned into a furious scream, and Emily felt the shadows clawing at her skin. "No!" The shrill cry echoed through the night, the darkness swirling violently, crashing like waves. But Emily stood her ground, feeling the rush of energy coursing through her veins. As Jake leaped toward her, the blinding light enveloped them both. For a fleeting moment, they were bathed in radiance. The laughter turned to wails of fury. "You can't keep him." But as quickly as it came, the light began to flicker again, and Emily felt her own strength waning. "Fight, Jake, fight!" With one last burst of energy, she wrapped her arms around him, determined to keep him safe as the shadows lunged forward, a final haul of desperate grasping tendrils, seeking to reclaim what they felt was rightfully theirs. Would their bond protect them from the consuming void? Or would the darkness reclaim its prize? As the shadows lunged, the world around them warped and twisted. What would they lose in their fight for freedom? And was there truly a way home amid the chaos? The seconds stretched into eternity as the light flickered, vulnerable against the ravenous shadows closing in. Time felt like a cruel joke. Emily's heartbeat drummed against the silence that lingered after the light. For a moment, she feared they had not escaped. "Mom!" Jake's voice was a fragile whisper, lost amid the cacophony of darkness that screeched in frustration, clawing back at them hungrily. "Hold on. We won't let them take you," she shouted, her voice cracking yet defiant. She tightened her arms around Jake, the warmth of his small body fueling her dwindling resolve. The shadows lashed out, striking in furious waves, but each time, the bright pulse from Emily's core erupted in a shield, their bond a beacon of hope against despair. As Jake nestled closer, she felt his fear radiating, sharp and cold. "I don't want to be here." "They want me," he whimpered, his breath hitching. "No, they don't. You belong with me." Emily countered fiercely, forcing the words through the tightness in her throat. Dark whispers surrounded them, taunting and haunting. "You cannot protect love," they hissed, the voice of the sinister girl threading through the angry shadows. "Come join us, Jake. Embrace your destiny." "No! You don't understand," Emily screamed, feeling the shadows trying to worm their way into Jake's mind. She sensed the seductive pull of their promises, like a siren song luring him away from her. "Listen to me, Jake. Remember the summer nights? The fireflies? Your friends?" For a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, the shadows seemed to pause, as though wrestling with the strength of her voice. Jake blinked, and something shifted in his eyes. The glassy glaze faded momentarily, revealing the bright spark of his innocence. "Mom!" I want to come home, he said, voice trembling yet full of defiance as he looked at her. Yes. Keep fighting. With a surge of light, she thrust her arms outward, pushing against the shadows that roiled like a wild storm. They can't take you. You're stronger than them. But the girl from the darkness cackled, her laughter slicing through the air. What you feel is far more than simple fear. This is your son's true potential, Emily. You are merely delaying the inevitable. The shadows writhed violently, threatening to crush the light, to extinguish it forever. They screamed and wailed, clawing at the ground as though it were a living thing. No! You will not have him! Emily's voice rose above the tormenting din, raw and primal. He will not be pawned off to your darkness. Look at us, look at what we've fought through. Emily felt the dark tendrils retreat slightly, as if wounded by her fierce determination. But, breathing heavily, she could sense that her light was dimming. They would have to make a choice soon, one that could reclaim their existence or shatter their fragile hold on life. The darkness began to flicker, as though sensing the balance shift ever so slightly. What will you sacrifice for this love? Emily's breath caught, and she knew. Some part of her had always known that love comes with a price. Jake, she began, her heart aching as she prepared to face the unthinkable. Mom? Jake's voice quivered, fear threading into his words. Whatever it takes, we will be free, she declared, taking a ragged breath. We have to make a choice together. Just as she was about to say more, the shadows lunged forward again, furious but desperate. The moment hung precariously, a fragile thread between her motherly instinct and thrusting darkness. In the corner of her eye, a sharp movement caught her attention, something shifting behind the shadows, something even darker. What is that? She wondered, feeling a shiver creep along her spine. Could it be another threat, or perhaps an unexpected ally? Or was it merely another manifestation of the darkness, desperate to steal away their hope? With panic rising, Emily held her breath, waiting, as the shadows quivered on the edge of her sanity, threatening to plunge them back into oblivion. Emily's heart raced as the shadows lunged, threatening to engulf her and Jake. Fear crackled in the air like static, and for a moment, all she could think about was the suffocating darkness that pressed around them. She couldn't lose him, not now, not after everything they had fought through. Look at me, Jake! She screamed, her voice slicing through the chaos. You are stronger than this. She felt her resolve harden like steel. She had to break the curse that gripped them both. Mom, Jake's voice trembled as the shadows tightened around him, whispering sweet nothings in a chorus. I want to stay, it's fun here. No, it's a trap. Emily countered, her panic rising to new heights. You're confused. You don't want this. She could see uncertainty flickering behind Jake's eyes, yet the darkness twisted and coiled, trying to snatch that flicker away. Come with us, Jake, hissed the girl from the shadows, all too eager to entwine him in their grip. You can have everything you want. Just give in. No, Emily shouted, shaking her head furiously. Don't listen to them. They'll take everything. The shadows roared in response, a cacophony of growls and sinister laughter that wormed into her mind. Jake's small figure was caught between two worlds, the pure innocence of his childhood warring with the seductive whispers from the dark. She was losing him. Then, in a moment of clarity, Emily remembered the countless moments they'd shared, the laughter, the adventures, the love that glimmered within their hearts like a beacon. Jake, remember when we flew those kites? The color of the sky when the sun set? Think of all our dreams, our memories. You belong with me. You can't throw that away. The shadows trembled, their hold weakening as they recoiled at the mention of their bond. They were not just mother and son. They were partners in a fight against darkness. Fight, Jake, she urged. You can do it. I believe in you. Jake blinked, a glimmer of awareness shining in his eyes, as he fought against the darkness wrapping around him. "I want to come home, Mom," he gasped, confusion etched into his features. With a fervent shout, Emily pushed against everything that sought to claw them away. "Take my hand. Now!" As she reached out, the shadows hissed in anger, wrenching at Jake with desperate hunger. But he hesitated. "Jake, please!" she pleaded, her heart pounding violently in her chest. "You have to trust me." Finally, he took a trembling step toward her, stretching out his hand. The moment their fingers touched, light exploded between them, illuminating the darkness as if daybreak had shattered through a long night. "No!" The shadows screamed, the darkness swirling around them like a frantic tornado, attempting to snatch them away again. But Emily held onto Jake tighter, their connection pulsing with vivid energy. Was this the moment they had been fighting for? With one last burst of determination, Emily summoned every memory, every ounce of love they had shared, and sent it forth like a shockwave, pushing against the darkness. The shadows hissed, retreating, their forms collapsing in on themselves with desperate fury. They wouldn't let go that easily. "Mom!" Jake cried, the fear breaking through the darkness. "Help!" Using the raw energy ignited by their connection, Emily surged forward, pulling Jake with her, feeling the shadows tear at her flesh, biting deeply, but she refused to stop. With each step, she challenged the darkness, knowing it fed on fear, and with every ounce of love radiating from them, the power of their bond held strong. Finally, the playground loomed closer. They were almost there. "Keep going, just a little more." Jake's grip grew firm around her hand, their fingers entwined as they thundered toward the exit. The shadows tried to grasp their ankles but fell short, an angry tide fading back into the abyss. Bursting through the threshold of the haunted playground, light washed over them, and Emily's heart swelled with hope as she finally felt the frigid darkness pull away, dissipating like smoke. The cacophony of shadows faded, leaving behind a serene silence. Breathless, Emily spun around to see the playground, a twisted version of a place once full of laughter, now flickering with remnants of shadows, tentatively retreating into the corners. "We did it," she whispered, blinking away tears as relief streamed through her. Jake's eyes widened, and he clung tightly to her side. "Are we safe now, Mom?" "Forever safe," Emily reassured, her heart full of warmth. They had battled the darkness and emerged victorious. As they stood there, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, spilling color back into the world. No more monsters, no more shadows. Just the promise of a new day ahead, and the bond of a mother and son, unbreakable and forever strong. With newfound determination, they turned toward home, ready to face whatever came next together. Now that you've lived every moment with Emily and Jake, remember this: your support means everything. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will chill your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show you want more heart-pounding adventures. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this mind-bending wrap-up. True fans know how important your support is.